All right. Welcome everyone to our information session and panel. So tonight we're going to go ahead and let you speak to some lovely students, but first I'll kick things off. My name is Jackie Marthouse. I'm an assistant director of undergraduate admissions here at Northwestern, and I'm also a double alum. I graduated with my communications degree and just recently wrapped up my master's degree. So we have a couple class of 2020 on this panel today. So I'll just say for all of us, it's super exciting, and congrats to them for graduating. And again, thanks to my double alum status, you can say I really love the cats, right? And so I, of course, am not on this panel alone today. So I'm going to hand it off to Kylie, our moderator, to introduce herself and introduce the panelists.
Thank you, Jackie. So like Jackie said, my name is Kiley Bruss. I am a current graduate student here at Northwestern in our School of Education and Social Policy, studying higher education administration and policy. I am wrapping up my last couple classes over this summer quarter and getting ready to finish my master's degree. And I'm originally from the suburbs of Chicago, Batavia, Illinois, which is just about an hour straight west of the city. And I'll go ahead and pass it off to Lucy.
Hi, I am a fourth year from Waynesboro, Virginia. I'm a double major in environmental science and English literature with a minor in earth and planetary sciences. And when we are on campus during normal times and I'm not giving tours, generally you can find me very dramatically cross-examining witnesses on Northwestern's mock trial team. And I'm going to hand it over to Tricia.
Awesome, thanks, Lucy. Hi, everyone. I'm Tricia. I'm a third-year student at Northwestern studying civil engineering and pursuing a certificate in architectural engineering and design. I'm from Hinsdale, Illinois. When I'm not giving tours or in the classroom, though, I'm actually singing a cappella with the Northwestern undertones. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tucker.
Thanks, Tricia. Hey, everybody. My name is Tucker. I am a recent graduate of Northwestern. I actually just graduated this past weekend, so go class of 2020. Got my new alumni hat on. I studied musical theater and dance and choreography at Northwestern, and I'm originally from St. Petersburg, Florida. And one fun thing I did while I was at Northwestern was I got to do this independent research project on Joni Mitchell. And I actually created a brand new Joni Mitchell musical as a student. So that was really exciting. And I'm going to pass it over to Kandise.
Hi there, folks. My name is Kandise LeBlanc, and like Tucker, I'm also a very recent graduate of Northwestern. I received a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing and a Bachelor of Music in opera performance, so I was on the dual degree track. I'm originally from Long Beach, California, and one of the biggest things I did during my time at Northwestern is for my senior honors voice recital, I created a multimedia recital on the Black female experience. So I guess with that, I'll hand it back to Jackie.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So super excited to get y'all to talk to these panelists. Go ahead and start dropping your questions in the chat. But first, I'm just going to give you a brief overview about Northwestern and what we have to offer. And then again, like I said, as I'm talking, if you think of something you want to ask these students, please drop it in the chat. So I want to start off just by kind of centering you where Northwestern is, who we are, and we'll talk through again a couple different things before I hand it back to these panelists. But to start, we're located in Evanston, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. So if you've heard of this big city of Chicago and you're thinking, wow, how close could it be? It's pretty close. Chicago's huge though. So while we're literally 3 miles from the outer city limits, we're about 13 miles from that space where you would think of when you think of Chicago. And so you're literally in this suburb that's so close to a major city, and you're actually right along the lake. So we have a beautiful lakefront campus that's about 1 mile long, half a mile wide, and it's home to 8,000 undergraduates. So today you see a panel of 4 undergraduates, and you've got a master's student here, you've got me as an alum, and you can see that across the span, they're involved in a bunch of different things. They're interested about different things. They all come from different areas, and that's what's happening on campus all the time. So we have those 8,000 undergrads, an additional 8,000 master's and PhD students. So a lot of different people on campus, and I think that's really exciting because that means you're going to meet people who are different than you. You're going to see people who are from different geographical backgrounds, but also different racial and ethnic backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses, and different academic interests. And so all of that together comes to our campus in Evanston, and that means you will get a well-rounded education because you're going to be learning from different voices, new perspectives, and those perspectives can only add to your time here. And so while we have that on campus, right, it manifests itself in how you interact with them in different ways. So I'll start with academics. Here at Northwestern, we have a 6-school model. So we're 6 undergraduate schools. On this panel today, we've got the majority represented. If you count me, almost all of them. And so across our 6 schools, just because you're not in one doesn't mean you can't take classes in one or major or minor across them or do certificates across them. And so while we have 6 schools, and I'll just name them really quickly, they're the College of Arts and Sciences, the School of Education and Social Policy, the School of Communication, the School of Music, the School of Engineering, and the School of Journalism. These 6 schools don't just stand by themselves and you're just in one school and you never see anyone else in the other schools. Nope, you move around, you meet new people all the time. You might be like me and be in one for undergrad and then start a different master's program in a different school. It's really across the board what you can do with this 6-school model. And a highlight of that and the reason of that is the quarter system. So we actually function on the quarter system here at Northwestern. If you've heard of the quarter system before, that's awesome. If you think you know what it means, that's great. You've probably more likely heard of a semester system at high school side. Typically within that, you might have quarters. It's a little different on how we function though. So if you look at our school year, we take the entire year, January through December, and divide it into 4. 3 of those 4s are your quarters or your school year. So our school year starts in the fall, just like everyone else, and goes through June. So we start end of September all the way through June, and you'll see 3 quarters, fall, winter, spring quarters during that time. Your summer quarter is that 4th quarter, and that's your time off. So you can go ahead and go home, you can get a job, you can do an internship, you can research, you can study abroad. That 4th quarter is really for you to do what you want with it. But again, traditionally our students are in class that fall, winter, spring quarters. The main benefit of this is you actually get to take more classes on the quarter system. So there are 3 quarters, 4 classes a quarter typically. What's that come out to? 12, right? 12 classes a year. On a semester system, typically there are 2 semesters and there are 5 classes in a year. That is 10 classes, so 5 classes a semester, so that's 10 classes in a year. So over 4 years, 10 versus 12 over 4 years, you're looking at least 8 extra classes during your time here at Northwestern. That's 8 extra times to try something new, go to a different school and take some classes, maybe add that major or minor, change your mind, or really take a deep dive in what interests you. So our quarter system is kind of the heart of who we are. It shows how flexible and interdisciplinary we like to be, and it's how we function academically, but also I'd say a huge benefit to our students in general. And so academically, obviously, like I said, you've got the 6-school model. They have a ton of majors and minors across. I encourage you to even go to our website and just click through our major finder, just check out the different options. But I also want you to think beyond just what you might be actually studying in the classroom. At Northwestern, we give you a lot of opportunities to do something called experiential learning. Now, this is something where I was talking about before, maybe that research, maybe that study abroad, or maybe it's an internship. All of those are ways for you to get beyond the classroom and learn something. Our students do study abroad all over the year, so you can go a quarter, 2 quarters, the whole year, the summer. Our students pursue research opportunities on campus and in Chicago. Over the summer, they might go to a different institution or different type of organization that does research and do research that way. And then our students also have so many connections just even in the Chicago area to pursue those internships over the summer or over the school year for credit. And 2 of our schools actually build in an internship for you to actually have to do that experiential learning as part of your major. And that is that Medill School of Journalism and the School of Education and Social Policy that naturally build those in. But even if you're not in one of those schools, don't worry, you can easily find an internship to pack as part of your academic curriculum and get credit for it through our Chicago Field Studies program. Or you can be like many students and pursue it over the summer while taking advantage of our career services office, the different college fairs we have, career fairs. I keep saying college fairs because, I'm an admissions director and I go to college fairs, but you all would go to career fairs once you're on campus. And those fairs are where employers come from across the country, across the world, different companies coming to look for Northwestern students to work for them as interns and maybe eventually as full-time employees. And so that network is naturally built into your time here. Now, as far as what else there is to do on campus beyond that network, I want you to also consider what our campus looks like just for fun, right? What's our community? Who are we? That's just as important as how an institution will set you up for success. So while we have this opportunity, obviously, for you to study and explore everything you're interested in, and that's why you're looking at college, right? You do want to keep learning. We have opportunities for you to learn more beyond the classroom, but we also have opportunities for you to just engage with those different people I was talking about and explore everything you're interested in that might not necessarily be academic. So we have over 500 student groups on campus. They range from things like entertainment-based, like dance groups, a cappella, to publications. We have several newspapers, magazines. There's philanthropy groups. So if you're interested in volunteering, giving back to our community, both in Evanston or Chicago or across the world, those exist. We have groups that are a little bit more niche, maybe like a trash talking chess club I know exists. So if you really like trash talking and you really like chess, I mean, this is it. And then we also have some just generally fun clubs like our happiness club, which is really just about sharing happiness around campus. And so all of these clubs, of course, I can't name every single type or topic or even all of them. They exist on campus and meet and bring students together in ways that maybe their classroom or their residence hall can't. And so you've got that going on. And then in general, just the type of student that comes to Northwestern is a student who is not only ambitious, of course, but also collaborative. This community is very supportive. And I think everyone on this panel will agree that they have some example of that or some way to explain how they felt supported in this community, how they found their people, and how it wasn't necessarily this cutthroat, hyper-competitive environment. Because once you're on campus, you are with a bunch of people who are stars and are stellar, but they want to see everyone succeed. And that ranges from students to staff. And so no matter who you're interacting with, you will see this really collaborative, supportive environment. And so that's like my super quick overview of our community. I also want to quickly touch over our admissions and financial aid process. But before I do that, I would be remiss not to just kind of mention that obviously we're in a very uncertain, turbulent time, right? And that's directly something that you're probably thinking about with admissions and maybe financial aid, but also you should be thinking about it in general as your college search continues. We have a pandemic going on. We're reckoning with continued racial injustice. We are seeing so many different systems fall apart, come together in our world, right? And so for us at Northwestern, we are addressing it through different statements. Our director of admissions has released 2 blog posts that you can read through that help you really understand how admissions centers themselves during this time. I want you to keep in mind that a school like Northwestern relies on holistic admissions, and that's not changing just because there's a pandemic or there's so many things going on within protests or anything like that. We will still review your application in context of who you are, what you have to offer, and holistically everything together. And so if that means your testing center isn't open right now, that's not going to be an issue. We will be aware of that. We have officially gone test optional for this next year. So that's not something that I want you to necessarily stress over, right? If you are not necessarily having strong attendance because your school is still in session right now, but you want to go and support the Black Lives Matter movement, you want to go out into the streets, and you're worried about how that's going to affect your attendance or your maybe disciplinary action for that, that's something that we will consider in context. And I want you to know that we support students who are doing what they need to in the classroom, but also what they're doing beyond that, okay? So just be well aware that these blog posts cover that, but I want you to know, coming from an admissions director, that when I'm looking at your application, I'm just looking for the context and trying to figure out the whole story. I'm not trying to judge you. I'm not trying to make something hurt you that shouldn't hurt you. And so as far as our application goes, we're on the Common App or the Coalition app. You can apply either way, one-stop shop for applying to colleges. So I'm sure you're not just looking at us. It's very easy then to just fill out one of those and send it to all the schools you're looking at. Unlike many of those institutions on those platforms, we do have a supplement. That supplement will ask you what school you're applying to, what major, and also an additional essay question, which will be like, why Northwestern? It's just asking, why are you applying? Why are you interested in us? And before I give in like advice on that, I just want to highlight that the supplement is the only piece that only goes to us. Everything else is going to all your schools. So you only have to write certain additional context statements once if you need that. You only have to write that one essay once, fill that activity sheet once. All of that is in one little package that gets sent out, and then we see that supplement additionally. Now, as far as what we look through that application, again, we are holistic. Every piece matters. We're looking at your academics, which include test scores. Again, we have gone test optional for this next year, meaning that if you cannot take the test, if you are not happy with your score because you couldn't take it again, if you just don't want to deal with testing right now, just don't worry about it. It's not going to be factored into your application if it's not included. If you are submitting scores, it will be considered, okay? So just remember that everything you put in your application is considered. That's also a big part of holistic. Then we've got activities. So I mentioned there's a ton of activities on campus. We want to see students who are involved at the high school level because then they'll get involved at the college level ideally. So just list everything you've been involved in. Again, with the pandemic, I know you can't physically meet with your sports team. You can't go on a class charity event anymore. So what did you do before the pandemic, and how maybe you adapted, or if you haven't, that's fine, because that's something that we just know understandably things got cut short or canceled. The next part would then be your essay. So there's one in the application and one on the supplement. The supplement question I'll dive into a little bit more because I just want to highlight you need to be specific in that one. Talk specifically about Northwestern. Highlight something maybe you heard in this panel, in a different YouTube session. Maybe you got to visit campus before everything happened. Talk about that. If you sell something on the website, just connect it to you. That's really my point here. What experiences have you had with Northwestern, and why is it something that you're drawn to? What do you have to maybe add to campus, and what can campus add to you? The other essay is a little bit more straightforward because there's really no one way to answer a main college essay. I just want to stress that no matter what topic you choose, no matter what approach you choose, just make sure it has a main point and it shows that you can write and are ready to write at the college level. That's really it. That's the main point of it. And of course, we want to learn more about you that way. So whatever topic makes sense for you, please do. But just keep in mind that also check your grammar and your spelling as well. And then finally, there's recommendation letters. We just require two, one from a counselor and one from a core subject teacher. And then lastly, on financial aid at Northwestern is entirely need-based. So that means we look at your FAFSA and your CSS profile usually, and those two together will put together a number your family can contribute to your education. This is based on a number of factors like income, assets, all of that. And so that's how we calculate that number through two forms. And then we take our financial aid policy and basically plop it next to our total cost of attendance minus that financial aid contribution, minus that family contribution will be your financial aid package. So let's say the FAFSA and CSS profile say you can only pay $20,000. Our total cost of attendance is about $75,000, I think. So that's coming down. If you do 75 minus 20,000 is 55,000 from your financial aid. And that is entirely loan free. So that's money you don't pay back. That money is going directly towards your education and from our financial aid office. If you have questions about that or you want to learn more, please look at our financial aid website. There's a calculator on there. Every school that offers financial aid will have a net price calculator. That's what it's called. So I encourage you to do it for all your schools. At the end of the day, you're going through this college process and looking at a lot of different places. So it's helpful to check out every single calculator, every single financial aid policy, and really also factor that into your future decisions, especially now, and especially as we're looking towards what our future might look like. And so that is hopefully not a too long-winded, but also hopefully somewhat comprehensive overview of Northwestern. I'm going to pass it back to Kylie now so she can go ahead and start answering the questions that I hope have been populating in the chat. And I'll be back to sign us off later. So on to you, Kylie.
Thank you, Jackie. Thanks for all that information. We do have a lot of questions and we are ready to answer them for you. So one of the biggest things about Northwestern that makes us a little bit unique is that we do run on that academic quarter system. So Tucker, would you mind giving us a little bit into a glimpse of how the quarter system has affected your time at Northwestern? And can you talk a little bit about that balance of academic and personal life with the quarter system?
Sure. Thank you, Kylie. Yeah, I actually, like many of you probably, attended a semester high school and semester primary schools growing up. And my brother attended a semester university. So I definitely grew up experiencing both semester and quarter systems and kind of seeing how that affected your experience as a college student. I have fallen in love with the quarter system because I think it keeps students on track really well. At Northwestern, we often talk in weeks. So each quarter, owns about 10 weeks of time. And typically the academic calendar will start in late September and then run up through early December. That's your first 10 weeks, your fall quarter. And then we go on winter break for about 3 weeks. Then we come back for our winter quarter, which runs from early January through late March, and that's another 10 weeks. Then we go on spring break for about 1 week. And then we come back and have our third quarter, our spring quarter, from early April through early June, and then we are done with the required 3 quarters out of those 4 quarters for the year. Then everybody has the option of coming back for the summer quarter, the 4th quarter, and a lot of my friends ended up taking classes during that 4th quarter just because they wanted to take fewer classes during the other 3 quarters across the 4 years, or it actually also allows you to get another major in if you're interested in double majoring, or to add in a minor. So basically what that 4th quarter allows you to do is have the flexibility. It's also really there for you for mental health purposes. So I had friends who had family issues or health issues during different quarters, and they decided it was best for them to take off a fall, winter, or spring quarter and then make up those classes during a summer. So it really gives you a nice padding, a nice cushion, so you can still graduate within those 3 or 4 years if that's something that you're aiming to do. So that was really important to me. It also definitely keeps you on your toes in the sense that you are taking exams pretty consistently throughout those 10 weeks, but I know there's a big concern from students about that being overbearing, and I will say professors design their courses for those 10-week quarters. So you're never going to get 15 weeks of curriculum crammed into those 10 weeks. In fact, it actually makes the classes a little bit more specific and a little bit more deep rather than wide in the knowledge you're covering. So at a semester-based school, you might be having a 15-week class that covers 2 different topics, like psych research might also include psych statistics. At Northwestern, we actually split those into 2 different classes. So you get 10 weeks on just psych statistics and another on just psychological research methods. So you're getting 5 more weeks spread up into each of those categories, and not being at all expected to cover that material within a more confined amount of time. So I actually found that it was better for me as a student because I could focus on more niche, more specific information in each class and get to interact with more professors across my 4 years as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tucker. And again, with that balance of academic and personal life, Tricia, would you mind talking a little bit more about how you feel the environment on Northwestern's campus is? Jackie mentioned earlier that collaborative feel. Would you agree that it's more collaborative, or is there a sense of competitiveness on campus?
I was concerned about coming into college because everyone wants to find study groups and everyone wants to, just everything along those lines. And that was definitely a concern if things would be. That's not the case at all. Northwestern is so collaborative. Stepping onto campus for the first time, I was declared an engineering major, but I wasn't 100% sure. And one of the really awesome things that Northwestern does for first-year engineers is puts them in very similar classes right off the bat. So you're taking like a design thinking communication class with all their engineers, which is a very small group. And then you have classes like engineering analysis and general chemistry, which are larger groups. And within those, like you find discussion sections of smaller people. And that was an immediate great way for me to find study groups and find people that I really wanted to do homework with and go to the library with. And also one thing that was really great about that is that you learn so many things from your peers, like right off the bat, like which libraries are the best to go to. Not that any of them are better than others, but just like which, like what study spaces are good. So definitely more collaborative as opposed to competitive. I truly cannot underestimate this enough or overestimate this enough. That's what I meant to say. Overestimate enough how willing people are to like seek you out. I made it my mission my first quarter to sit next to a different person every day in my general chemistry class because it was such a big lecture and it made it feel a little bit smaller. And within that, you have so many people being like, hey, we're going to make a study guide if you want to jump on this Google Doc with us. Or, hey, we were thinking of going to the library on this day. So truly, one thing I was scared of is like, oh, in these big classes, people might get curved against each other, you know, people might be compared to each other. But the second I said like, oh no, this is my journey and these people are just helping me to be better, they're helping themselves to be better. That was the second that I was like, okay, this is really, really awesome. So definitely way more collaborative. People are all in this together, and I think it's necessary to center yourself on your own academic journey and not compare yourself to others. But yeah, totally collaborative.
Thank you so much. And Tricia mentioned classes, and that's a big question too. What do college classes look like? And so Kandise, we know that based on your major at Northwestern, classes may look a little bit different, but if there was a way to describe the typical Northwestern class, what would it be? Are they typically more lecture-based, discussion-based? Can you just speak a little bit to, I guess, the diversity of classes at Northwestern, and then what you would kind of summarize a class as being?
Definitely, and I'll start off with a few statistics because I think that helps grab the conversation. Over 80% of courses have fewer than 20 students in the course. So most classes at Northwestern are definitely more discussion-based courses. And only 2% of courses at Northwestern have over 100 students, and those are typically your larger introduction-style courses. So think intro economics, intro to psychology. But for all of those courses that have even more than 40 students, the professor that teaches the larger lecture is required to have a separate discussion section. So you'll go from that larger 100-person class to a smaller discussion-based section led by your teacher's assistant. And that's the person that'll help you go over your essays, maybe brush up on some test-taking techniques. For me, the largest class that I've taken here at Northwestern was one of our most popular courses called Marriage 101, Building Loving and Lasting Relationships. Which that course typically has 190 people every single year. But like I said before, we had the larger lecture style, and then we also had once a week our discussion section with 2 teacher's assistants. And on the opposite end, the smallest class I've taken at Northwestern was a 3-person keyboard skills class, a very intimate 8 a.m. course. I will say both of those extremes are not the most common experience, but typically you'll have that class size of fewer than 20 students.
Thank you so much, Kandise. Another important part of the Northwestern academic experience is the distribution requirements. So Lucy, do you mind sharing a little bit about what those distribution requirements are?
Yeah, so I mean, every school has their own requirements of what you need to kind of take outside of your major to make sure you have that well-rounded liberal arts education that Northwestern prides itself on. But so for Weinberg specifically, what that means is you have to take 12 courses, 2 in each of 6 areas. And those areas are things like literature and fine arts, social and behavioral sciences, natural sciences. There's just 6 different areas. Now, some of those you'll totally cover just through your major. I, for instance, am a double major in both the arts and the sciences. So quite a bit of those courses just kind of double counted with my major. But there were a couple of classes that I just had to go out of my comfort zone a little bit to take to meet those requirements. However, I kind of find the way that Northwestern does it to be really awesome. None of them are like a general elective requirements. You know, you don't have to take Psych 101 or something. You can find something that's very niche and interests you a lot that will go towards those distribution requirements. So for instance, for me, I'm not a big math person. I took AP Calculus in high school, so that hopefully I wouldn't have to take it again at college. So when I got to Northwestern, I needed to take some sort of math or quote unquote formal studies class to meet that distribution. And so what I took was like statistics for the life sciences. And it was a computer science class mixed with basically like life science issues that was like took a statistics tilt. So I didn't actually have to take a straight up math class, but I still was able to meet that requirement. And that can be said for all of the different areas. Whether something that you maybe don't feel is your strongest suit is literature, you can find classes that do meet your interests and find a cool way to experience something that you maybe wouldn't have normally taken a class in while still meeting those requirements that go towards your graduation.
Thank you, Lucy. We've also talked a little bit about those learning experiences outside of the classroom. So Tucker, would you mind speaking a little bit more about the research opportunities at Northwestern and how those may be accessible to first-year students?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so Northwestern first and foremost prides itself as a research institution. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure I knew what that meant coming in as a freshman. I pictured research as being test tubes and database analysis and all these things that I thought would not pertain to me as an arts major. And that was really kind of ignorant of me. That was absolutely not true once I got on campus. I learned that research was accessible to students across the board, regardless of what you were studying, and really easy to be a part of. So we actually allocate $3.3 million a year just to undergraduate research. So that's research that is completely thought of and completed by you as undergraduate students. That's not research that you're helping graduate students with or research that you're helping faculty members with. That is research that you are completing from beginning to end, which is pretty exciting. So if you have any idea for research, all you have to do is go to our Office for Undergraduate Research, and they actually have a whole staff of amazing individuals who will help you go through the application process. You pitch them your idea, they talk with you about the timeline of your research, and then once your application is accepted and processed, you're actually granted $1,000 to work for a 10-week research period. So you would do that during one of those standard 10-week quarters throughout the year, or up to $3,500 to work across an 8-week period for the summer. And that research, that money can go toward whatever you want it to for your research. So that can actually help you make prototypes. If you're interested in building something physical, that money could go toward helping you get access to a 3D printer, for example, or to attaining materials to make that physical thing. That could also go toward travel funds. So I had some friends who were doing research on topics that brought them all the way to Europe. And they ended up traveling to 5 different countries and going to library archives throughout those countries in Europe. And that the funds from the research center covered those travel fees. So that was pretty exciting. So what that money goes towards is really up to you, which is pretty cool. And oftentimes that research will actually be used in creating a thesis or some culminating project. And what that project looks like depends on what you're studying. So for me, my research funds and my process went toward creating a brand new musical that was staged on Northwestern's campus with Tricia actually in it. And for other people, that looks like I said, creating a thesis project or even going toward making a grant to send off to some organization in the Chicagoland area. So it's really great. You have a lot of flexibility in how you can use those research funds. And oftentimes you can even talk to professors within your department to make that research part of an independent study that you can even get credit toward if you're not interested in using the funds from the center itself.
Thank you, Tucker. Research, again, is a huge part of learning outside of the classroom, but so are internships and hands-on experience in the field that you're interested in. So Tricia, would you mind speaking a little bit about the opportunities that Northwestern offers students in searching for internships and jobs?
So one thing that I loved about Northwestern when I was touring was, like Jackie mentioned when she was giving the information, is the integration of career within the academic scene at Northwestern. College is a place for learning. And I think one of those ways that I learned was like learning how to navigate the career scene and learning how people get jobs in the first place, because that's not something that I came into college knowing how to do. And I think that the majority of people come into college don't really know how to do that. So one really great thing about the Northwestern Career Advancement Office and also all of the individual career development offices within all of the undergraduate schools is that it's not just like, oh, here's a career fair and this is how you get a job. There are stepping stones to be able to get there that I would totally recommend. Northwestern Career Advancement will flood your email inbox, so you will know when they're happening, I promise. So these are things from mock interview days where they bring in people from your specified industry and they will have these people interview you and then give you feedback on your interview skills. I've been to workshops on how to dress business casual and business professional because those are apparently really different things, as I've found out recently. I've been to resume and cover letter open houses because the first career fair I went to, I just copy and pasted my name onto my mom's resume and all of my stuff. So really first, I would totally recommend those. But also one thing that I want to say is that a Northwestern degree is really, it speaks for the time. So one thing I learned is to kind of walk into places with confidence and walk into places with enthusiasm. Even if you are a first-year student, being a first-year student at Northwestern says a lot. And so that was one thing that I told myself walking into career fairs for the first time. I remember going up to companies at my first engineering career fair. It was a career fair for just civil and environmental engineers. About 16 companies came and there's only 60 people in our department. So it was a really small, intimate experience that I loved a lot. I remember walking up to companies with no relevant experience on my resume besides the classes I had taken, and just being like, I'm really excited to learn and I'm really excited to put in the work. And I know that I don't have experience, but I know that I would be honored to like be able to get that experience. And you'd be surprised how far that takes you. So definitely utilize those career experiences right away. I found that internships are really awesome ways to kind of step outside the classroom and actually try things. These past 2 summers, I've done internships in construction management, which has been so valuable. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. But yeah, definitely. One thing I'll also mention is that you don't have to pursue a paid internship. You can get an unpaid internship, and there are grants that the school can give you. So my best friend, Emily, she's a theater major, and she really wanted to work at this casting agency in New York, but she didn't have, it was an unpaid internship, and she wanted to be able to live there. So she received a grant from the university to be able to pay for her living fees to be able to go and pursue that unpaid internship. So definitely look into that as well.
Thank you. So like Tucker and Tricia talked about, all of these opportunities are available from the second that you set foot on campus as a first-year students. So Kandise, can you talk about other experiences or opportunities that Northwestern offers first-year students to kind of adjust to campus environment and meet other students?
Yeah, I think the biggest way that incoming students become acclimated to Northwestern as a whole is through Wildcat Welcome. And Wildcat Welcome is our first year in transfer orientation. All the incoming students are paired up with a peer advisor who's a Northwestern student just a few years older than them, and around anywhere between 7 to 16 also incoming students. And they're all united by some commonality. So if you're in the College of Arts and Sciences, you're all in the same first year seminar group, or if you're a dual degree student like me, all of the people in my peer advising group were BEAN, non-BEAN dual degree students. And from there, you're introduced to all the different Northwestern traditions, which also help incoming students become acclimated, whether it's marching through Weber Arch and hearing a speech from our president, Morty Shapiro, or running across the football field for our first home game. My incoming class, the Wildcat Welcome of 2015, actually set the record for running across the football field in the shortest amount of time. I haven't checked to see if anyone's beaten it, but at that moment, we were the best, and I'd like to keep on to that. But also, in addition to Wildcat Welcome, there's also where you live on campus. We do have a 2-year on-campus living requirement. But for me, during my time here at Northwestern, the friends that I made, whether on my floor or in the residential neighborhoods around me, really made a difference. There's a lot more information on our YouTube about housing here on campus. But whether it's being able to speak with a live-in faculty member and getting that relationship with them even before you've taken classes, or being able to make friends on your floor and having friends not just in the classroom or in the major, but being able to spread your connections throughout the Northwestern community across all disciplines is a really great way for Northwestern students to feel like home is also where they go to school.
Thank you, Kandise. And like you mentioned, that living experience is super important. We do have a lot of resources on our website to learn a little bit more about that. But Tucker, would you mind just like quickly talking about how housing at Northwestern works? Like what types of options there are? Can you choose your roommate? All the things that we want to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I know housing is a really important topic for incoming students, and as it should be, absolutely. That was a really big part of my decision making. And Northwestern, as Kandise was speaking about, really makes the housing experience an important one for first-year students especially. So as Kandise mentioned, you do have a 2-year live-on requirement, but the cool thing is you get to choose which buildings you want to live in or which communities you want to live in across the campus for those 2 years. And you also have the flexibility to change between those buildings your first 2 years. So if you're in one building your freshman year and it's just not working out for you, you can easily change to your second building. That being said, I know from personal experience and also from the experiences that my classmates have shared, a lot of people do find home in the first building they live on or live in their first year. So that's pretty exciting. That's a testament to the communities people make within their buildings. We have 3 different types of living experiences for our undergrad students. We have residential halls, residential colleges, and residential communities. And the residential halls are kind of your standard dorm. That just means you're living in a 3 to 4 story high building. Each floor will have, of course, your bathrooms as well as your lounge or study spaces. The residential colleges are thematic, meaning that they're based around one subject that everybody in that building is passionate about. And those residential colleges do sometimes change year to year, depending on which ones stay open. But there have been ones in the arts, in the humanities, in engineering. So that's just kind of a way to live near people who are passionate about the same things that you are. The third and now most popular type of residential experience is the residential communities, or neighborhood living, as we call it. And that is just a cluster of dorm buildings that have facilities that everybody in that area can take advantage of. So if you live in building A, you might have a gym in your building. If you live in building B, you might have a dining hall. If you live in building C, you might have collaborative study spaces. And as a resident in building A, B, or C, you have swipe access with your student ID to get into any one of those three buildings, and you don't have to walk more than 100 feet, which is great during the winter, to get into those buildings and use those facilities. It's really also very cool that now some of the faculty members who are serving as advisors for those residential communities are offering classes in the spaces in those buildings. So I have an amazing voice professor who I've worked with who has offered a course on pop music and pop music stylings for the voice right inside one of the dorm buildings. So students living in that building got priority when they were signing up for classes, and also did not have to even leave the building during winter quarter to get that voice training. So it's really cool that there are professors who are bringing in that experience from the classroom into your living experience as well. As far as applications go, during the summer before your freshman year, before your first year on campus, you receive this amazing holy survey where they ask you to basically rank your preference of buildings. So you can choose it based on proximity to the classes you're going to be taking, to proximity to downtown Evanston, if that's important to you. You can choose the buildings however you want, and you're going to put them in a ranking order. And then you also can choose roommates through a variety of different ways. I actually chose my roommate through a Facebook group that was created during that summer. And basically everybody posted their bios introducing themselves. And then we connected, found out that we would be really good roommates. And we then were given a code by the university to put into that survey saying, we want to live together. It was such a good match that we ended up living together our second year as well. So that was great. Other people do random, and that's also really successful for people. And also there's a service that the university offers where you can go in and basically introduce yourself as a person. So you can say, I like to wake up early, or I like to sleep in late. I like to study with music, or I like to study in silence. I like to eat in my room, or I like to keep my room completely free of food. And then they will pair you with somebody who has similar attributes to you. So there are a variety of ways that you can choose your roommates, but you get to do all of that on that big housing survey the summer before your first year on campus.
Thank you so much. It answers a lot of questions about housing, so I appreciate that. Another aspect of not only living on campus, but also social life on campus is Greek life. So Lucy, would you mind sharing a little bit about the role of Greek life on Northwestern's campus?
Yeah, so Greek life makes up about, I believe, about 40% of students on campus, and that's including both Pan-Hellenic Greek life as well as professional organizations and the multicultural organizations. So this is including things like the music fraternity and the business or pre-law fraternity. But about 40% is the number of students on campus who are involved in Greek life. From a social aspect, I think that it definitely can contribute to a positive or exciting social life, especially your first year on campus when you're starting to get to know people. If you are finding yourself really interested in things like you're a pre-law student, pre-business student who is majoring in econ, or you're really into music and you want to find outlets like that to connect with other people who are similar to you, it's a really, really great way to get involved into that kind of community. Usually they have really awesome connections with alumni, especially I know the business fraternity has a lot of alumni networking meetings. Things like that. The Pan-Hellenic fraternities and sororities, which is usually what people think of when they think stereotypically Greek life. I am a part of it. I found it to be really, really supplemental to my social life here at Northwestern. I've met some really, really amazing people. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. However, it's definitely not dominant. My best group of friends, my three best friends at Northwestern, two of which are not involved in Greek life at all, and one of which is in a completely different Greek organization. So I definitely don't think it dominates the social life. It's not everything to everyone, but it is there, and a good number of people are involved. So you can find your community there. You can completely ignore it if you want to. Really, any option any way opinion you might have about the Greek life. People go their own way for the most part.
Thank you, Lucy. One thing that we all have in common is that we've all worked for the Office of Admissions. However, we probably know some other people who have had other jobs on campus. So Tricia, would you mind speaking a little bit about job opportunities for students on campus?
Obviously the best job on campus, in my opinion, but I'm totally not biased on that one. There are a ton of ways that you can get jobs on campus or near campus. One really great thing is that if you're working on campus, it can be a work study oftentimes. So I have friends that work in the campus gyms. They rent out equipment to other students. Maybe people want to rent out a basketball or volleyball or something to use at Henry Crown Sports Pavilion. And students can be working there. Additionally, I know friends that are working at the libraries on campus, and they'll just be swiping wild cards to get in and out of libraries, renting out books to students. And what's really great about those kind of jobs is that while you're working, a lot of times you can get your work done. So I know people that sit at the front desks of the libraries and like to work on their own homework as they're getting their work done. So that's obviously a really great opportunity, as well as jobs being work study. You also don't have to do them for work study. I know people that do both. So those are a couple examples, but I also know a lot of people that work in close proximity to campus at local Evanston places. I have friends who are baristas at the local coffee shops like Newport Coffee Shop, and I know people who are working nearby or volunteering nearby at like the Humane Society and places like that. So really the opportunities are endless as far as jobs go. You can also a lot of times get paid research assistant positions. So if you want to combine that love of learning and that desire to get learning outside of the classroom, you can oftentimes do that with research. So yeah, those are some jobs that I'll definitely mention, but the opportunities are limitless, but also become a tour guide. It's the best job.
Thank you so much, Tricia. Like Tricia mentioned, there's a lot going on in the local Evanston community. So Kandise, would you mind sharing what it's like living in Evanston as a college student? And then some maybe things you've done for fun, both in the local community and in Chicago.
Most definitely. I'm coming to you from my Evanston apartment right now. What I love about Evanston, especially coming from a very big hometown, is just how safe it is. Whenever I'm walking around the streets of Evanston, whether it's walking very early in the morning with my foster dog or walking home late at night from a cappella, I've never felt unsafe. And also in a similar regard to that, Evanston is very locally based. So being able to make strong relationships with one of my favorite restaurants, Prairie Moon, for one of the coffee shops down the street. Northwestern and Evanston are heavily entangled, and whether it's being able to get discounts just by showing your wildcard ID at many of the different restaurants, or Northwestern hosting events for classes or for performance opportunities in the Evanston area, there's a really strong camaraderie between them. And in fact, Evanston is known as the dining capital of the North Shore. So if you want any kind of food, whether it's, a prime steak or if you just want a really good smoothie, you're going to be able to have both of those eating opportunities in Evanston itself. But on the opposite end, we also are located just next to Chicago. Like Jackie mentioned before, we're only a few miles from the Chicago city limit and around 10 miles from the downtown Chicago area. And there's lots of different ways that Northwestern makes sure that students have access to the city, whether it's through various different programs through different disciplines of having internship possibilities or classes, or whether it's just students going down to Chicago for fun. Students get free access to the Art Institute of Chicago, which is one of my favorite places to visit. And it's super great being able to have that access for free. Some of my favorite memories in Chicago, one of my favorite classes I've taken was in the English department with Bill Savage, called The Chicago Way. And it was all about literature based in Chicago. And at the end of the course, our professor led us on a roughly 3-hour bike tour of the entire city of Chicago. So we got to see, Wrigleyville up the northern side and the Sox Stadium way down on the southern side. And at the very end, our professor treated us all to burgers and fries at his favorite dive restaurant. And I think that really just goes to show how much that Northwestern has that love of Chicago and how there's so much to do, not just in this small college town that we're in, but we also have Metropolis in our back pocket.
Thank you, Kandise. That perfectly summarizes the entire Evanston, Chicago experience. Another part of, moving to a new place and bringing your life to college is making sure that you're staying personally healthy. And so, Lucy, do you mind talking about a few things that you've done for yourself, or maybe that your friends have done to stay just both physically and mentally healthy while you're at campus?
Yeah, so I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about when you are starting the whole college, university process is how lonely it can be. I think people always talk about the best 4 years of your life. And it kind of puts a pressure on a lot of people to make every moment be the best moment it can possibly be. And I think especially as a first year who has moved away from home for the first time, or, even if you were in boarding school, it's a very, very different loose structure. So, you don't have a schedule every single day. You don't have classes to go to. You're not seeing the same people every day. You're alone for a much greater percentage of the time than you normally would be. And that's, I think, for universities everywhere. And so I think that when I first came to Northwestern, I wasn't really ready for that. And I wasn't really expecting it. And I also came from a very, very small town, very, very white, very Christian, very poor. And so I was kind of overwhelmed by a lot of other changes as well. And so I think that when you go to a new place like this, it's really important to have some sort of routine, some sort of physical, mental health process. And unfortunately, I think a lot of students don't realize that until maybe a year or two into university. I certainly didn't. It took me a while to get through it. But luckily, Northwestern has a lot of things that are going for it. There is CAPS, which is a psychological service that it resides on campus. You can call and get an appointment with a counselor. So they have plenty of counseling services for various issues. There's also a group called Wild Chat, which is actually a student organization in which you can call in if you're having trouble with anything, and someone will just talk to you or just listen for any length of time. So there are definitely student organizations as well as administrative sanctioned by Northwestern things going on that can help mentally. Physically, I've always found, we talked a little bit about some of the different gyms and things on campus. But I can go into that a little bit more. There are two big gyms on campus. One is north, one is south. And then there are smaller gyms in a lot of the different residential halls and communities. Tucker kind of briefly mentioned that. So there's always ways to stay physically active, even during the cold, cold months of winter. Your wild card can get you into any of these places for free. And then when it gets nice and warm out, we've got the lake fill. You'll usually find me running around it because it's a nice little 3-mile loop if you go all around campus. So there's plenty of ways to get out, stay active. And that's not even including a lot of athletics on campus, whether you're on the varsity level, intramural level, or club level. There's plenty of ways to stay fit, whether it's just tossing around a Frisbee with your friends, kind of the least competitive intramural level, a little more competitive club level, kind of like a high school sport, practice a couple times a week. You'll have games on the weekends during the season, or if you're a full out student athlete, varsity level, and that is generally a much, much greater commitment level. So plenty of ways to stay physically healthy. There are definitely a lot of areas to stay mentally healthy, different organizations on campus. However, of course, that's always an area that needs to a lot more improvement and consideration. But I think that Northwestern has been doing a really great job, and the administration is taking a lot of that stuff into account. But I think just, it's the idea of making a routine and becoming aware that, those things are extremely important, even if you wouldn't necessarily think about it when you're first heading off to college.
Thank you so much, Lucy, and thank you to all of our panelists. So that was our last question, but I want to go ahead and give each of our 4 amazing panelists the chance to tell you all why they chose Northwestern. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Tucker, and then Tucker, you can just pass it to the next when you share your why NU story.
Great. Yeah, I chose Northwestern because I really wanted to have that liberal arts Renaissance learning experience that so many of us have been speaking to today. knowing that I was going to be studying musical theater and dance, I had two options. I had the liberal arts Bachelor of Arts route, or I had the BFA Bachelor of Fine Arts Conservatory route. And something that was really important to me was actually getting a holistic education and continuing to focus on academics outside of my arts classes as well, but to also be surrounded by students and faculty members from other disciplines who respected and loved the arts and had a curiosity for the arts. And gosh, Northwestern provides that. What's so beautiful about our school is, as I believe Jackie spoke to earlier, people from across the 6 colleges really do interact each and every day, whether that's in your classes or it's in where you're living. It's really an amazing opportunity on campus to engage with people across those disciplines. So that's something that I found to be really true, and that collaboration was something that really drew me to Northwestern. I'll pass it over to Kandise.
Kind of similar to Tucker, I also really valued the academic flexibility, but I think more from just the difference of the conservatory style to liberal arts. For me, having the academic exploration of the liberal arts program that Northwestern provides was really important to me. As a writer and a singer, I knew that I needed something to write and sing about. And for the liberal arts program, that allowed me to explore various parts of my identity and academic explorations that I hadn't been able to explore in high school in particular. So whether it was taking a mixed race experience course for my social behavioral studies distro, or taking that marriage 101 course like I mentioned before, there's so many different ways that through the Northwestern curriculum itself and the quarter system, the Northwestern students are able to take classes and find new passions that they didn't even know that they've had before. I guess with that, I'll pass it over to Tricia.
Many reasons that I chose Northwestern is because I've always been someone that learns by experience. And one thing I remembered so vividly touring Northwestern for engineers specifically was this class called Design Thinking and Communication that all first-year engineers take, where you're assigned a real-world project for a real-world client. So it's not just having your nose in a textbook like some classes are. And for me, that was like a huge, huge plus that Northwestern had that I didn't see at a lot of other schools, where you could be 18 years old and you could be learning what an engineer actually does by doing what an engineer actually does. And that was so important for me coming in. And that's true for all of the schools, that you have that built-in applied learning experience, whether that's in the curriculum, whether that's what you find outside of it. So I think that truly, that was something that I loved about Northwestern, that the career experience and the college experience weren't mutually exclusive. You really right off the bat and be treated as an engineer when you're 18 years old and coming from high school. So that was something that I really, really loved. And of course, one of many reasons, but yeah, I'll pass.
Yeah, so everyone else kind of went over a little bit similar of why I chose NU. So I think I'm going to go a little bit more why I stayed at NU and why I love it so much. So I mentioned a little bit that the transition to university was a bit hard for me. I was definitely out of my water in a lot of different ways. But I think I had this kind of epiphany moment towards the end of my first year at a birthday party with all my friends, and my head got shoved into some cake. And I just kind of realized, like, wow, this is exactly where I'm meant to be. And it really has to do with the people. Something that's amazing about Northwestern is you'll have, dance and engineering double majors. You'll have people with all these wild interests. And they're so different and so diverse from all these different backgrounds. But the one thing that we all have in common is that we're passionate. Wild cats care about something. They want to change something. They want to do something with the world. No matter whether it's a really small scale or really, really global, they want to make a difference in somebody's life in some way. I think that is so inspiring. And so looking at all my friends at the end of my first year and realizing that I was surrounded by so many amazing people who just cared about something. Even the quietest one, you think he's not really into much, you get him talking about that one little thing he likes, and he'll just talk your ear off. And I think it's something really unique about Northwestern, that it's almost like a little incubator for these future passionate leaders of different industries of the world. And it's a feeling that I've never gotten anywhere else. And it's this just feeling of this need to make change and do good. And yeah, I think passion is really the only word for it. And I absolutely love it. So that's why I'm a tour guide. That's why I say go Cats and encourage you all to apply here. But yeah, so pass that back to Jackie.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Those were great ways to end this panel. If you all will join me in the chat, thanking our panelists, thanking our moderator, Kylie. If you guys want to learn more about Northwestern, please subscribe to our channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notifications, and check out our website and all the other great recorded sessions and different info sessions with different departments and just everything we have to offer online until we can finally welcome you back to campus. So with that, I hope you all have a great evening or afternoon, wherever you are. Maybe it's morning, so you just have a great day. Have a great week. And as always, go Cats.